Ladies and gentlemen, any less? Hardly. Brother Rick Curry.
I remember almost everything about my own college graduation. I remember the weather. I remember that my parents were there, my sister was there. I remember my friends. I even remember the presents that I received. What I do not remember was who was the graduation speaker and what he or she had to say. I am under no illusion that that won't be your experience too. We are here to hear your names mentioned as graduates of the College of New Rochelle. My gift is that I'll try to be brief. My day job, as Dr. Sweeney has mentioned to you, is that I run an organization called the National Theater Workshop of the Handicapped. It's an organization that trains talented persons with disabilities to break into the theatrical worlds, television, radio, stage, screen. We also train disabled warriors coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan to learn how to write dramatic monologues so that they might be able to not only get their story out, but to tell their story to a wider audience. But let me tell you how this venture came to be. When I was a student at New York University in the theater department, we were encouraged to try to go out and get a television commercial. A group of us got together in what we used to call in the 70s a support group. And we tried to find out which commercials we thought we were going to have the greatest chance of auditioning for. I was running into very little luck. Finally, I decided that it was because I wasn't concentrating. And I got to the Ross Report, and I saw that there was an audition for a mouthwash commercial. And I thought, I could do that. I even had some credentialing because my father, who was alive at the time, was a practicing dentist. I sent in my resume. I sent in my headshot. I made an appointment and was scheduled for a Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. I awakened early to be certain that everything was in place and that I was ready for this great moment of auditioning. I went up to 6th Avenue and I went up to the 18th floor of this huge building. And I walked into the receptionist, and she said to me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes. My name is Rick Curry, and I'm here for the mouthwash commercial." At that moment, she burst into peals of laughter. She kept pounding the desk, and she kept saying, "Jimmy put you up to this, didn't he? This is great. He finally got me. This is fabulous. This is spectacular." And I said, "Who's Jimmy?" I said, "I'm really here for the mouthwash commercial. My name is Rick Curry, and if you look on the list, I think you'll see that I'm scheduled for 9 a.m. And with that, I saw her face change. And it was for the first time in my life that I felt and saw the ugly face of prejudice. She pointed to my empty sleeve, and she said, "Oh, I can't send you up there. They'll think I'm creating a joke, and I'm not taking my job seriously." And I said, "But no, I'm just here for the mouthwash commercial." And I all of a sudden began to feel deprivation, not deprivation because I was born with one arm, deprivation because I was looking at ignorance. There was no way that I could convince her that being born with one arm should stop me from having the chance to gargle nationally. I was angry and I was hurt. And those two emotions running simultaneously through the veins of an Irishman are lethal. I left. Going down in that elevator, I thought the world was coming in on me. And when I walked out onto 6th Avenue, it was a beautiful, bright, crisp spring morning. I all of a sudden started seeing people walk up the street and look at me, and I started seeing in their eyes that they were looking at me as someone not whole, someone less than, someone crippled. And I didn't like any of those feelings because I had never been trained that way. It was not the way my parents raised me. It was not the way the Jesuits taught me. And I just kept walking because I had nowhere to go. And even for an Irishman, it was so early that the bars were not open. St. Ignatius Loyola founded the Jesuits, and he's very sensitive to how Jesuits feel in regard to emotions. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, what would Ignatius say? I know. Ignatius would say, stop thinking about you, Rick. Start thinking about other people. What do other people do who have greater disabilities than you who want to break into theater? Why do I feel that those people looking at me are looking at something less when in fact I feel I'm not less than? And by the time I got back to my residence on 16th Street, I decided to start a theater school for persons with disabilities. That was 30 years ago, and we have trained tens of thousands of students since. Graduates of the College of New Rochelle, wonderful things can come from hurt. Wonderful things can come from disappointment. When I started the theater and things were going relatively well, I was sending out breads because I had been trained as a baker when I was a young Jesuit. Sending out breads at Christmas time to thank our benefactors. Mercifully, those benefactors grew in number. And one time during class, before Christmas time, I said to the students, listen, I have a lot of breads to bake this Saturday. Would anyone like to come and help me? And to my surprise, and also to my dismay, 11 students raised their hands. Not only 11 students, but 11 students with different disabling conditions. And I thought, oh my God, what have I wrought? But they came on Saturday. We had 2 little people at the time. I put them in charge of the oven. They were right the height of the oven door. We put our blind students on chopping vegetables and fruits. We raised chairs for some, raised tables for others. And at the end of the day, we were taking out luscious loaves of holiday breads, wrapping them and shipping them to our benefactors. And I thought, this is a miracle. I thought this is a good idea. I had been collecting recipes from Jesuit brothers all over the world for years. I went back to those recipes and said, you know, I really should write a book. I wrote a book called The Secrets of Jesuit Bread Making. HarperCollins was gracious enough to publish it, and it was reviewed favorably. And I got a telephone call from someone from National Public Radio. He said, I've read your book. I would love to come up to see your bakery. I would love to come up to see your school. I said, come ahead. Come on ahead. It's now Christmas time. We were in the midst of baking, and all of a sudden I turned around, and there's a little man, a little bald-headed man with dancing blue eyes, holding a little microphone up to my lips, and he looked very nervous, and I realized that it was he from the National Public Radio. The whole day he stuck very, very close to me. He seemed to be so upset when he first arrived. It was only later that I heard that he was greeted at the bakery door by one of our blind women carrying a rather large knife. But he showed no recovery powers whatsoever. That night, I thought to myself, good heavens, that man missed the story. He never introduced himself to any of our students. The next day, he came back with a larger crew, more sophisticated sound equipment, because he was going to audio tape our cabaret. Now, our cabaret are our veteran students, very gifted performers who travel all over the country entertaining. Finally, after an hour of recording, he sat down and said, can I talk to your students? I said, absolutely yes. He started out the conversation by saying, what annoys you people? I'll tell you what annoys we people. Journalists like yourself who have such a negative attitude about disability that you didn't even introduce yourself to the students yesterday. And as a journalist, I believe you missed the story. You missed the miracle going on in that room of all these students with different disabling conditions working together and creating luscious loaves of bread and sending them out as gifts. We disabled don't want to be passive recipients of other people's goodwill. We want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We want to be in your lives. And his little bald head snapped back, and he said to one of our very talented women, a woman of color by the name of Sandy in leg braces, and he said, "Sandy, you said that you want to be in a soap opera. What role could you possibly play in your condition?" And without missing a beat, Sandy said, "Oh, the bitch." And then he turned to an older woman in a wheelchair, and she said to him, "Listen, let me tell you something. You told me I couldn't be on a Broadway play because no Broadway stage is ramped. Let me tell you something," she said. "If I get a role in a Broadway play, I'll be on that stage every night, twice on Wednesdays and twice on Saturdays, because that's my job." And then he turned to me and he said, "You know, Brother Rick, I have to tell you that I'm really offended when I hear you refer to disability as a blessing." I said, "Oh, my friend," I said, "we don't want you to become disabled. We don't want your children to be disabled. We don't want to be disabled. But if, in fact, that is the gift that God has given us, I say let's celebrate it." And then I said, "And quite frankly, I'd rather have one arm than be bald." The only deprivation we have comes from ignorance. Embrace all of your limitations. They too are gifts. And accept other people's limitations. Those too are gifts. Celebrate their differences. Celebrate your differences. Never forget he who gave you those gifts. He makes no trash. God bless you. Thank you very much.
The college will now confer its honorary degrees. For the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Brother Rick Curry. Please rise. Advocate for the disabled, teacher, actor, and author, you've transformed the personal experiences of prejudice, rejection, disappointment, and anger as a disabled person into transformational opportunities for other disabled persons, and thereby opportunities for the healing of the abled as well. In providing the disabled opportunity for full participation in society, you've also provided the opportunity for society to grow as people come to appreciate the talents of the disabled, all too long hidden away. In response to your own experience of discrimination, you opened a small acting workshop specifically for the disabled in a loft in Lower Manhattan, which has become today the National Theatre Workshop of the Handicapped, with its summer workshop in Belfast, Maine. More recently, you've added the Wounded Warriors Writing Program to offer wounded veterans new pathways into society for which they have sacrificed and from which they have felt excluded. President Sweeney, for enthusiastically modeling praising God with the face you have, for demonstrating that being handicapped is a difference which can be a gift to self and society, for leading the underserved community of the disabled to go beyond their challenges, and for his ability to gather the goodness and talents of others to join him in this project. I request that you, President Sweeney, confer on Brother Rick Curry, S.J., the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Honoris Causa. Pessa C. Pessa C. Seal, you demonstrate the power of one woman joining deep faith with action to address a growing human crisis, a crisis especially serious in the African American diaspora. Your compassion, wisdom, and pioneering efforts have brought to the forefront health issues that would otherwise remain unmentioned, misunderstood, and unaddressed had you not marshaled the energy of religious communities here and abroad to educate and support those affected, especially those afflicted with HIV/AIDS. Your understanding of the centrality of the Black church in the Black community, the reality of over 300 churches in Harlem, and the total absence of the Black church in the face of this growing crisis in 1989 led you to the idea of a Harlem Week of Prayer for the healing of AIDS. That first week of prayer has now become the Black Church Week of Prayer, and the original 50 congregations have grown to over 1,500 congregations. You founded the Balm in Gilead because you realized the African American churches needed support to continue their work in the fight against HIV/AIDS. President Sweeney, for modeling the power of faith and education, for her unwavering voice defending the value of each human being and prodding us to greater moral and social responsibility, for her ability to marshal the energy of religious communities to educate and support those affected by HIV/AIDS, I request that you, President Sweeney, confer on Pessa C. Seal the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Honoris Causa. John J. Sweeney. Answering the call from your early family experiences of the Transport Workers Union and the social justice teachings of the Catholic Church, you left your post-collegiate job at IBM to join the International Ladies Garment Workers Union at a considerable reduction in salary. Your life choices have subsequently been on behalf of the working women and men of America, and more recently, of the working men and women of the world. The son of Irish immigrants, you were born in the Bronx, raised by a mother who worked as a domestic and a father who was a city bus driver and a member of the Transport Workers Union, then led by the legendary Michael Quill. The themes of your Bronx upbringing were labor unions and the Catholic faith. In 1995, you were elected president of the AFL-CIO, and you've been re-elected 3 times since. Under your wise leadership, the AFL-CIO has demonstrably striven to fulfill the hopes expressed by Pope John Paul II that, thanks to the work of their unions, workers will not only have more, but be more. In other words, they will realize their humanity more fully in every respect. President Sweeney, for a life committed to the dignity of human work so that workers will not only have more, but be more, for leading the way to justice for the workers of America and the world, for a career dedicated to economic justice and political reform in the workplace, I request that you, President Sweeney, confer on John J. Sweeney the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Honoris Causa. Would the honorary degree candidates please rise? Dr. Sweeney, it is my privilege on behalf of the college community to verify that these 3 candidates exemplify in their lives and achievements the highest ideals of the College of New Rochelle. I respectfully request that you confer on these candidates the honorary degrees Doctor of Humane Letters.
By virtue of the authority of the Regents of the University of the State of New York, vested in the Board of Trustees of the College of New Rochelle, and by them delegated to me, I confer on these 3 candidates the honorary degree Doctor of Humane Letters and admit each to all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations.